KCAA and KCAA Internet Television, the station that leaves no listener and no viewer behind.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Good afternoon to my listeners on KCAA in the Inland Empire. Good afternoon, San Bernardino. Good afternoon, Riverside, Rancho Cucamonga, and Loma Linda, California. And good afternoon to those listening to me on the live stream link. Actually, it may be evening in some parts of the world where people are listening on the live stream link. Well, good evening to you, too. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. It's Wednesday, November 28th. I'm Kathleen. And what's happening today on the domestic front is that our news is focused on what? The Benghazi issue. We're focused on the fact that UN Ambassador Susan Rice has presumably, this is what the right is saying, this is what the GOP is saying, that she has mischaracterized what has happened in Libya. She has mischaracterized intentionally what has happened in Benghazi. And so this is the second day of hearings, congressional hearings, regarding this issue. The second day. In fact, the GOP has characterized it as a tawdry affair, this Benghazi incident. That's what our media is focused on. In fact, when I drove in today, I was listening to the radio, and that's all they were talking about, Benghazi. Oh, and also the debt talks. What President Obama wants to do regarding the debt talks. He wants to keep the tax cuts in for the middle class and increase them for those who are making between over $250,000. So those are the two issues that the media is focusing on. Wherever our politicians go, our media will sure to follow. They follow wherever the politicians go. Is that sufficient? Is that giving the American people enough information? And, you know, in the meantime, while we're focused in our media on Benghazi and the debt talks, we are sending $3 billion plus. The pluses includes loan guarantees to Israel each year. On November 14th, hostilities broke out between Israel and Gaza, between Israel and Palestine. And on November 22nd, 8 days after the hostilities, a ceasefire was announced. This ceasefire was brokered by Egypt's President Morsi, UN Security General Ban Ki-moon, and UN Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also used their influence to stop the fighting. This truce has held, despite reports that on the day after the truce, after the ceasefire was announced, that on that Friday, the 23rd, Israeli troops shot and killed 20-year-old Anwar Qaddafi. Israeli forces opened fire on Palestinian farmers. Qaddafi was on the Gaza side of the border, and he was unarmed. It is reported that by Hamas that Israeli soldiers opened fire when farmers were trying to reach their land near the Israeli-Gaza border. However, the Israel Defense Forces said the people were rioters, and they attempted to breach the divide between Israel and Gaza. This was the first report of a fatality since Hamas and Israel agreed to a ceasefire. So, the question on the table today is, will the ceasefire hold? Is it fragile? If it doesn't hold, what can we expect? And why is this ceasefire so fragile? Today I'm delighted to have with me as a guest, again, he was on last week, journalist and activist and documentary filmmaker Harry Fair. He's in Gaza live. I have him on again today. I'm delighted to have him. Hi, Harry. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on again.
So, talk to me about this ceasefire? Why is it so fragile?
Well, it's fragile because looking at the historical record, it's not going to last. I may speak, looking at the historical record, Israel has broken most of the ceasefires that have been in place, that have been regionally brokered with Egypt, which is the case of this one as well. So, if we look at it in this kind of cynical or analytical way, it's not looking good for Gaza, because at some point Israel will break the ceasefire, probably by exacting targeted assassinations like it did at the beginning of Operation Pillar of Cloud on the 14th of November. So looking at this, Gaza has got relief at the moment, but it's expecting that Israel will come back for more blood, because that's the way it works in the Israeli political system. That the Israeli public think that Prime Minister Netanyahu was weak on Gaza, that he was a chicken to take a ceasefire with what the Israelis call Palestinian terrorist groups. So from the Israeli political position, which is really the main political position that matters other than the United States one with regard to Israel's military might and what it does with it, it's looking not great, because it looks like with 2 months left until the Israeli election, that things may kick off again before then. And that is not coming from me. That's coming from political analysts here and around the Middle East. That's the grave reading of the situation. Of course, we hope that the ceasefire will hold indefinitely. We hope that Israel will unilaterally withdraw from the Palestinian territories that it's occupying and oppressing their populations. Israel will continue. Will not continue. We hope that Israel will suddenly abide by international law.
You say we hope that Israel will get out of the occupied territories and get rid of the blockade. That's not going to happen.
It will happen one day, and the day that it does happen, we'll be very relieved to see that it happens, because it will be a massive and significant domino effect of justice for the Middle East. And so long as this insane treatment of the Palestinians continue, we can't really say that we have any sort of humanity on the face of the earth. So this is why it's so important to solve this blockade and to solve this oppression of Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank, in 1948 Palestine too.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people were characterizing this, at least in the West, in the media in the West, a lot of pundits and political people were saying that during this period of hostilities, Hamas gained some kind of footing, gained some kind of legitimacy, and that this would be seen as a negative thing for Abbas. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I was quite surprised, actually, to speak to Gazans over the last few days with regard to what's happening with this statehood bid. And they actually are highly supportive of this bid and highly supportive of Abbas's attempt to get statehood. Now, the reason why it was surprising is because in Gaza, generally, people actually do not support the two-state solution as the final resolution of the Israel-Palestine conflict, Israel-Palestine injustice, I prefer to call it. People generally support the one-state solution. That is, that everyone can live in the 1948 historic Palestinian homeland, including Muslims, Jews and Christians and others, but they've got to do so with equal rights in a secular state. So this is what most Gazans generally want. So actually hearing them support the statehood bid that would codify a Palestinian state in the Gazan and West Bank territory, but not in the Israeli territory, was a surprise to me. But it's a long-term strategic goal to get final resolution of the conflict, but by first getting the power as a state to actually have the law on their side in a way that they wouldn't, without this statehood status, be able to use the law to leverage Israel to stop committing crimes. Because at the moment, legally, the Palestinians are in a weaker position than they would otherwise be.
Mm-hmm. So Abbas is going to the UN tomorrow, and he's going to ask for observer status, which will not require a vote by the United States. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The situation with all of these statuses and with regard to the law is very bureaucratic in many ways and very grey. I mean, with respect to international law, it's only in the last 2 years that the Palestinians have actually had any ability to even seek some sort of case at the International Criminal Court. And if they can get observer status or statehood status, something greater than they have now, that would be a real benefit for them in terms of their cause, legally speaking.
Mm-hmm. And I just read recently where France will recognize this bid, will recognize their desire for statehood. Have you read that?
Yeah, this is right. Many states have supported it, many states have not. It's great to see what France has been doing actually in the last 1 or 2 weeks. It's certainly a warming and surely a representation of the French people, because it's not in their interest to support an insane regime treating Gazans and Palestinians in the West Bank in this way. So that's actually really great to see that loosening up of the French foreign policy towards Israel and Palestine.
Now, recently, President Morsi, in fact, there's protests as we speak now in Egypt, and it's supposed to go into this weekend coming up. The fact that President Morsi made this decree just days after he negotiated this truce, do you think there's any interrelatedness between the two things?
Well, that's not something which one can say with certainty, but the situation in Egypt right now is obviously serious. It's grave, and things are on fire again. Things are burning again in Egypt. When I went to Egypt a few weeks ago, I spoke to Egyptians. They were totally universally dissatisfied with Morsi's presiding over the country, and the recent increments in his kind of new dictatorship, if you like, are really extraordinary. And there are many analysts, and I don't say this with absolute confidence, but there are many analysts who say, well, look, this is all pressure from the United States manipulating Egyptian democracy, so it's not really democracy, it's a dictatorship 2.0, and that the regional situation with both Israel and the Palestinian Gaza Strip is all being manipulated and puppeted by United States hegemonic imperial power.
Oh, no, that doesn't sound good. But do you think that a ceasefire would have been negotiated with Mubarak if Mubarak was in power?
I think this is likely. Yeah, I think that this is likely. If we look at the historical record, Egypt was able to make ceasefires of this nature, similar to the one that we've got now. I don't think that the one we've got now is particularly better than the ones that have existed over the last few years between Israel and Palestinian resistance groups in Gaza. So I don't see that this is particularly a special ceasefire agreement. I think it's special for Egypt in terms of, we did something to help our Palestinian brothers and sisters in Gaza. So they kind of got a gold medal. But I think that is kind of about it, really, in terms of significance of the ceasefire. Many Gazans are dissatisfied with the ceasefire because it explicitly prevents resistance groups from launching any sort of operation on Israel, obviously, because it's a ceasefire agreement. So there are many Palestinians who are very dissatisfied about that. Certainly not most, but many.
Oh. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's talk about some specifics of the ceasefire and whether or not Israel violated that ceasefire. And then we'll take some phone calls also when we come back after the break. How does that sound?
It sounds great.
Okay, we'll be right back. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm speaking with Harry Fear live from Gaza. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Conscience International is an organization specializing in the delivery of medical aid to refugee victims of war and natural disasters. Since 1982, Conscience International has assisted refugees in the Middle East, Africa, the Caribbean, and Asia. The organization is led by Dr. James Jennings, whose life-saving efforts have been acknowledged by humanitarian awards from around the world. For more information and to make a tax-deductible donation to this worthy cause, please visit the Conscience International website at conscienceinternational.org.
Logos is an online quarterly journal of modern culture, politics, and society featuring cutting-edge articles on politics, culture, the arts, as well as book reviews and original, often experimental fiction and poetry. Logos fosters critical dialogue on modern society and current affairs by giving readers insight into the events that shape their lives. Logos, critical ideas for the engaged reader. Read online for free at www.logosjournal.com. For information about submissions to the journal, please contact Logos Online at igc.org.
Playgrounds for Palestine is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization dedicated to upholding the Palestinian child's rights to play. This is a right enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We operate through a volunteer board and staff, the generosity of our supporters, and a lot of heart. To date, Playgrounds for Palestine has constructed 15 playgrounds in Palestine, as well as refugee camps in Lebanon and Syria. To contribute to this most worthy cause, please go to our website at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org or send a check to Playgrounds for Palestine, P.O. Box 559, Yardley, Pennsylvania 19067 at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org.
This is KCAA.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, folks from your home and your histories.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Welcome back. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm Kathleen. My guest today is Harry Fear, journalist and activist and documentary maker from Gaza, live from Gaza. He was on last week. He's on again this week, and we're delighted to have him. So, Harry, I wanted to ask you something about the ceasefire. Has it been violated?
Well, it's been violated in a very simple and technical sense, in the sense that Israel has killed Palestinians since the ceasefire has been put in place. Palestinian airspace has been routinely violated, symbolically violated. So yes, it has been technically violated, but it has not been politically violated, because it's not in the interest of the government here in Gaza, Hamas, who's currently in power, to recognize the breaking of the ceasefire and to retaliate. And it's not in the Israeli state's interest to acknowledge that it's broken the ceasefire, particularly. So this is the reason why we're seeing breaches of the ceasefire, technically speaking, but politically speaking, nothing is being recognized as incursion and etc., as abuse, because it's not in the interest of the two parties to do so. So this is a tragedy of that situation, because within 2 days or even 1 day of the ceasefire being in effect, a 20-year-old Palestinian was killed by Israeli force. He was shot in the mouth, a 20-year-old man in East Khan Yunis, 2/3 of the way down the Gaza Strip. This man in Palestinian territory basically killed. People are calling it execution. People are calling it murder here in Gaza. And this is what's happened, in the first 48 hours of the ceasefire agreement being in place. At the same time, we're seeing drones flying over Gaza, not in anything like the frequency or level of force, if you like, that they normally fly over at before the war and during the war, but sometimes they are flying over, and also F-16s flying over. I heard one very loud yesterday afternoon, and there's photographic evidence that they're flying over just to symbolically violate Palestinian airspace, leaving pretty trails of fuel, vapor in the air, just to show the Palestinians that they can bomb again whenever they want to. They can violate the Palestinians' airspace whenever they want to, because the Palestinians don't have an air force. They don't have missiles which can target Israeli aircraft. So this is the kind of dynamic that the Gazans are left in, with violations continuing, but nothing that they can really do about it.
Mm-hmm. And it must make them feel very powerless.
I think that in one way they are, and are forced to feel like that. But I think at another level, at perhaps a more profound level, Gazans don't feel powerless, because what happened during Operation Pillar of Cloud, what happened during the 8-day war recently, was that the Palestinian resistance groups, for the first time, produced some sort of force that actually could deter Israeli force. There was some ability to defend the Palestinian people, not in any sort of normal conventional sense, but in an asymmetric conflict sense, the ability to deter state terrorism to an extent. And today there's been a kind of hot story going around Gaza with the local news agencies, etc. There have been some posters up in Gaza City saying thanks Iran, alluding to the rockets that were given to resistance groups in Gaza from the state of Iran, allegedly, that were able to strike Tel Aviv during the war. The analysis behind that being that they were able to deter Israel from a ground invasion or a further escalation of violence during the war, and that actually helped bring an end and bring the ceasefire into play. So that's the notion behind that. Having said that, though, the resistance groups were able to use and produce weapons that were as powerful as these Fajr 5 rockets that supposedly, allegedly were imported into Gaza from Iran. So there's only partial significance to that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the great things about having you on is that it gives me an opportunity for you to speak with your listeners, your viewers who view Harry TV Live, Harry Fear TV, right? Is that it? Harry Fear TV. So it gives me Harry. It gives me an opportunity. So let's take a call, because I know people want to speak with you and give and interact with you. That dynamic is a good thing. So we're going to take a call now from Claire in Oregon.
Hi, Harry, and thank you, Kathleen. I've been following you on the internet since this began, and I really appreciate your coverage. I have two questions, and I'll take the response offline. Harry, your opinion of the Israel citizens, the average people, do they support the actions of their military? And also, who do you think is ultimately behind all of this? Is there anyone behind, like Zionists, or would you break that down and give a little bit of history, please, to that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Thank you for the question. Well, the first question is, what's the average nature of Israelis, and do they support this? Well, I think that it's very important to realize that the Israeli society is a kind of more extreme version of American society or British society, because the UK and the US launched an illegal war of aggression on Iraq and killed about 1 million Iraqi civilians, according to the most authoritative case studies regarding that crime. So the societies in Britain and the United States must obviously have a great deal of inhumanity, a great deal of apathy, a great deal of passivity, a great deal of being able to be propagandized to, a severe level of indoctrination and militarization, normalization of state violence. So this is exactly the same situation here in Israel, but it's a more aggravated version of that. There's a very good report on the internet called Israeli Society is one of the most militarized on earth, and it shows that there are Israeli cartoon programs for children where the main characters are given names of weapons like Uzi, as in the Uzi submachine gun. The fact is that Israel is an extremely militarized society. People, young people, at the most vulnerable psychological age, are forced to do military service, forced to do, in most or many cases, the most boring or laborious work from an Israeli point of view, exacting the most humiliating treatment on Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, for example. So there's a system here to put in place the continuation and perpetuation of Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. So the average Israeli is actually also pretty blind and unknowing with regard to the history of the conflict and what is actually going on. And so in many ways, the average Israeli citizen doesn't actually stand much of a chance at really understanding the moral dynamic of, for example, Israel's Operation Pillar of Cloud, because they see their society as being surely defending itself in a proportionate way against an extraordinary threat from barbaric Islamic neighbors, which obviously is incorrect if you look at the actual historical record. So that is the situation Israelis find themselves in. It's not that different from Americans and British citizens on average. With regard to who's making this happen, well, I alluded to this earlier in the program with this notion of American hegemonic imperialist power, the fact that the American economic and military machine, the military-industrial congressional complex, driving military force across the world, supporting extraordinary military force. This is one of the biggest drivers of Israel, and that is exemplified in the military aid packages that the United States gives to Israel to allow it to do all of this. Because if that diplomatic support and economic support was withdrawn, Israel wouldn't be able to do what it's doing here in Gaza and in Palestine. So this is one of the biggest things. It's imperialism.
Mm-hmm. It's imperialism. It's not Zionism. I make a distinction. You don't?
Well, I think Zionism is the more specific ideological driver with respect to this particular conflict. But at a deeper level, it's just this notion that you can steal people's land, use force to get the resources, expel them, displace them, abuse them, and kill them en masse. That is what imperialism is all about. Mm-hmm. Well, Zionism is the political ideology which says, sure, you can have these people's homeland, the Palestinians' homeland, and you can build a new state on it, and use whatever force you like to expel the indigenous population so you can have your state there, your exclusivist state. That's what Zionism is about. It's a political ideology. It's a practical political plan. A practical political plan like using nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's a political ideology. It's a tool. And so Zionism is just the same. It's another criminal enterprise in this respect. The Nakba of 1947-1948, in which hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were forcibly driven from their homeland, is a moral crime. It's a historic crime, and it's on the historical record. And this is what Zionism is all about. Today, 5 years later, it's already been largely successful. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to put a stop to that momentum that is Zionism, the expelling and oppression of the indigenous Palestinian people.
And the ethnic cleansing. That's what's going on, the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Would you agree with that characterization?
Definitely. In the beginning, it was ethnic cleansing because we saw the indigenous population being driven out deliberately based on who they were. These days, though, Israel is such a militarized and racist society. It's not even just Arabs or Palestinians who are being oppressed and mistreated by the Israeli state, the Israeli military machine. It's anyone that doesn't support exclusivist Israeli ideology. It's Jewish dissenters. It's Africans. It's white internationals. Anyone that doesn't support the Israeli ideology, current incarnate Israeli state ideology, is a victim in some way of the Israeli machine. But surely, yes, in many ways it is just simply still ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people.
Exactly. So now we're going to take a call from Donna in New Jersey. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for taking the call. I just want to say that the way you just explained that, Harry, was so clear, so honest, and I don't know anyone else in media who has the courage to explain it in the way that you did, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Have you heard anything about the reports today of fishermen being arrested again in the Gaza Sea?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that, please?
Yes. I will just give some background first. before the war, there was, and still is in fact, a blockade, a medieval siege put in place on the Gaza Strip, affecting the land and sea. Palestinians don't have an air force, so basically land and sea is dominated by the Israeli state. After Hamas was elected democratically in 2006, this siege was put in place. Now, one of the elements of this siege was the maritime situation, that there's no in or outward traffic in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Palestinian territorial waters. The Israeli army imposed with live gunfire a total no-traffic status on the Palestinian territorial waters off the Gaza Strip. Now, looking inside the Palestinian territorial waters, there was a 3 nautical mile allowed movement zone for Palestinian fishermen, of which there are about 3,000. They could go into these 3 nautical miles to fish. Now, normally there would be just 6 miles or more that the fishermen in a normal situation outside of Gaza would fish in to get their normal catches. Now, what's happened in the ceasefire is that there was a relaxation. There was an easing of that restriction to...
Oh, it sounds like we got cut off, huh? I heard a...
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
So there's been a relaxing of 3 to 6 nautical miles. Now, what's happened is that even with this easing, the Israeli Navy have continued to harass Palestinian fishermen and have today arrested at least 6 Palestinian fishermen, taken their equipment, taken their boats to Ashdod, an Israeli port town. So that's the report that we got in a few hours ago, and this is since the ceasefire. Israel occupying and harassing and detaining Palestinian citizens after the war is meant to have been over. And this policy of harassment and mistreating Palestinian fishermen has gone on for years. It's gone on since the beginning of the siege, when it was put in place. And Palestinian fishermen have not only just been injured by Israeli Navy, but have been killed in numbers by Israeli live gunfire as they've shot at Palestinian fishermen within the allowed zone. They are being harassed and assaulted within the allowed zone that Israel has imposed on them. So being a Palestinian fisherman is not safe by any means. It's one of the dangerous jobs that Gazans do in an economically desperate situation to try to do something to help their families and their people. The second most obvious job in that category being those that work in the smuggling tunnel system with Egypt. Fear of being bombed by Israeli drones or F-16s as you're underground in the smuggling tunnels with the border with Egypt, or the tunnel simply caving in on you, and Palestinians have been known to have died inside those tunnels.
Donna, are you still on the line?
I'm still on the line. Yes, I am. And I thank you very much, Harry, for that very clear and concise answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna. So, Harry, I know that you mentioned that you're producing a video, and you said that this video will seriously dent Israel's ability to propagandize its recent onslaught on Gaza. Give me some specifics about that.
Well, Israel's operation was supposedly a very well-executed, researched, intelligence-backed, normal, conventional First World War on a Third World country. This is what Israel would like us to think. It's had a fantastically successful propaganda campaign affecting the mainstream media in the West and on the social media, Twitter and etc., saying that they used advanced military tactics to avoid civilian casualties and etc., that it was a purely defensive operation. But if you look at the very basic facts, the most basic facts, who died and how many died and why did they die during the so-called war, we see that 1 Israeli soldier died, 5 Israeli civilians died, and on the Palestinian side, how many died? 175 Palestinians died, more than 59 of whom were children, including 17 infants, that is those under the age of 5 years old. This is not some sort of defensive operation. This is clearly a policy of reckless force being used by the 4th most powerful military in the world. And so what we did in this latest film, it's called Operation Pillar of Death, naming Gaza's dead, is we named the dead. we went through and we spoke to Palestinians, Gazans, and we gave them the chance for the world, hopefully, to hear the very basic story of what happened, the names and the ages of who Israel killed. And we filmed this film in sites in Gaza that Israel struck with its airstrikes where Palestinians killed. And so in the film, we hear the names of every Palestinian that was killed by Israel during the operation.
When you get that done, I want to put it up on my website. We're going to go to break right now, and when we come back from the break, we're going to take phone calls because I want your listeners, your viewers, your fans to have an opportunity to speak with you. So we're going to take a break right now. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm speaking with Harry Fear, journalist in Gaza right now, and we'll be back right after the break. Stay with us.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Logos is an online quarterly journal of modern culture, politics, and society featuring cutting-edge articles on politics, culture, the arts, as well as book reviews and original, often experimental fiction and poetry. Logos fosters critical dialogue on modern society and current affairs by giving readers insight into the events that shape their lives. Logos, critical ideas for the engaged reader. Read online for free at www.logosjournal.com. For information about submissions to the journal, please contact logosonline@igc.org.
Conscience International is an organization specializing in the delivery of medical aid to refugee victims of war and natural disasters. Since 1982, Conscience International has assisted refugees in the Middle East, Africa, the Caribbean, and Asia. The organization is led by Dr. James Jennings, whose life-saving efforts have been acknowledged by humanitarian awards from around the world. For more information and to make a tax-deductible donation to this worthy cause, please visit the Conscience International website at conscienceinternational.org.
Playgrounds for Palestine is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization dedicated to upholding the Palestinians' child's rights to play. This is a right enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We operate through a volunteer board and staff, the generosity of our supporters, and a lot of heart. To date, Playgrounds for Palestine has constructed 15 playgrounds in Palestine, as well as refugee camps in Lebanon and Syria. To contribute to this most worthy cause, please go to our website at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org or send a check to Playgrounds for Palestine, P.O. Box 559, Yardley, Pennsylvania 19067 at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org.
This is KCAA.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, folks from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Welcome back to the Kathleen Wells Show. This is Kathleen. I'm Kathleen, yours truly. And we've got Harry Fear from Gaza. He's talking to us about the Israel-Palestine issue. We never hear it in the media in the West. We never hear it. We have no idea what's going on. This is supposed to be, what, the fourth estate? Isn't that the media, the fourth estate, informing the public? Well, we're going to go straight to a call now from Marina. Where's Marina from? Hi, Marina.
Yeah, hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me clearly, yeah? Because I'm actually calling from Skype from Europe.
Oh, wonderful. We hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, I see. Yeah, well, so, Harry, it's really great to talk to you, finally. I mean, I really want to express my gratitude, and I believe as well of so many people of your report during the last days, yeah?
Marina, where are you from in Europe?
Austria.
Oh, wow, how fascinating.
Yes. So, yes, I just want to ask actually two things to Harry. First of all, I'm very interested in what Harry just said in answer to Claire, yeah, the first caller. regarding the one-state solution, and also how actually it's like a culture in Israel that people are generally like racist in a way, and but I still think that like the big mass is actually the key to end all this conflict. And so like I want to ask you like what is do you maybe like have a solution like how to mobilize mass, especially the Israeli people or the American or the European regarding this. And also another interesting point is also regarding economy, for example, business or economic development, because I was just some 2 hours ago I was seeing this Al Jazeera streaming from Johan Galtung, for example, and he's speaking about peace economy as a solution for the Israel-Palestinian conflict. How do you see economy? Is there any role for economy to solve these things? And actually, the last question.
Let me take it.
Okay.
So the first question, well, let me do reverse chronological order. So this idea of economic power being useful, of course. This is why the boycott, divestment, sanction, this global movement to try and leverage economic power on the Israeli state is so important. And you're in Austria, in Europe, and the EU gives so much economic aid to Israel, not in terms of necessary packages, but in terms of help. It gives such a great deal of economic support to the Israeli state. It's almost encouraging it. And this year it even upped its support. It's working with the Israeli economy. So really the European Union is doing the opposite of what largely European citizens would want, which is to withdraw economic support as Israel breaches international law. It's actually been doing the opposite. It's been encouraging Israel. So economic power is, of course, the supreme power to shut down Israeli breaches of international law. And the other question, you'll have to remind me.
Marina, can you?
The other one, how to mobilize the mass. Actually.
Well, there's no magic hidden button to press to wake the world up. But what we're trying to do, what you're trying to do, what we're all trying to do is try and find a world based on justice and peace, and we're all fighting in our own way for that, and we're trying to wake up the people who are passive or indifferent or apathetic about injustices like the Israel-Palestine injustice, to try to do something about it in their way, in their own way. And everyone has their own way of contributing. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to just increase and swell the numbers of people that support the Palestinians. And that's happening. There are millions of people all over the world who support the Palestinians, and those numbers are increasing every day. And I see it in my own network of people who I interact with, that the numbers are swelling and swelling. And ordinary people are being converted to a situation where they're understanding the Israel-Palestine conflict. They're understanding this is not symmetrical. This is an asymmetrical oppressor and oppressed dynamic. And this is, for me, is an amazing thing to see ordinary people just waking up to the truth of the situation, the simple fact of the situation. So this is the glorious fight that we're in, the glorious struggle to seek justice in this way.
Okay, Marina. I see, okay.
Thank you very much.
Can I just have the last question?
Okay, one more. Okay, make it.
Yes, sorry, yeah. I just want to ask, so how is it to best contact you, Harry, regarding talks and interviews?
You should definitely email me. If you go to my website, harryfear.co.uk, you can find out how to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Marina.
Yes. Thank you, Harry, yes. And thank you, Kathleen. Bye.
Thank you very much. Harry, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Based on your experience, given your experience, how long have you been in Gaza?
I think I've been in Gaza 10 weeks now.
You've been there 10 weeks. Talk to me about how do you feel about Palestinians? What's your experience with Palestinians?
Palestinians are, in my experience, in my personal experience, they offer an example of the best of humanity. And I mean that absolutely clinically and critically. I mean exactly what I say. The way that Palestinians treat internationals or people who come here, including Jewish people, is extraordinary in hospitality and openness and humanity. And so for me, being here, the motivation to do all of this is the extraordinary love I receive from the Palestinian people that keeps me strong to try and fight for their rights in the way that I try to. And the Palestinian people are, on one level, suffering the most barbaric injustice, and at the other level are so resilient and steadfast against it. And these two threads run parallel at the same time. So just below a surface is such a level of suffering amongst the population. But at the other level, there is such a strength, a hardcore resilience in the hearts of people here. It's extraordinarily inspiring to see.
Well, I mean, look at the irony of that. I mean, there's some kind of psychological, spiritual, something's taking place there. Because here you have a population who experienced, the Jewish population experienced the Holocaust. So of all people, they should be aware of suffering. They should be aware of situations where people are humiliated, degraded to the fullest. And yet you have generations not far removed, maybe one generation, involved in this kind of situation of degrading a group of people. Is that deep? Or, I mean, there's something ironic about the whole thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost, if it was, a children's story, it would almost be beautifully written. But it's not, and it's, as you say, it's absolutely profoundly tragic. And I don't have an answer for that explanation that you give, that historical framing of it, because many people say this, how can a people that have gone through all of this then do this to another people? And to an extent that is kind of got some significance, and in that respect it is unbelievable to understand. But for me, I kind of try not to think so much about why it happens. The thing is, it's just wrong. Palestinian children should not be killed, 59 of them in 8 days or in 7 days and 3 hours. It's just wrong. It doesn't matter why it's happening.
Right.
And that's how I tend to see it, because you get into a moral quagmire if you try and find some sociological explanation for it.
Right. Trying to analyze it too deeply. Let's just deal with what is the reality. Okay, we're going to take a call from David now. Hi, David. Where are you calling from?
Kathleen, Vancouver, Washington.
Hi, David from Vancouver. What do you got to say to Harry? What do you have to ask?
I got to say to both of you, thank God for your program. You're floating in a sea of media hype and propaganda put forth by the Zionists on the entire Western world. Thank you so much for your clarity in framing this Israeli-Palestinian asymmetric context or conflict in the context that you've framed it. There are a couple of things that need to be made crystal clear to the listening audience that don't know very much about this issue, because we are so bombarded with Israeli propaganda. These people are ubiquitous in our media, in our financial systems, and everything else in Western governments. I
don't want to. When you say these people, I don't want that.
No, not Jewish people.
Okay.
There is a distinction between Zionists, which is a political entity. It has used the Jewish people and their long-suffering image to get away with what they have been getting away with for 63 years in Palestine, encroaching onto the land and stealing the land and murdering people for that land that they now call Israel. And it's ever-widening borders. They're yet undeclared illegal borders that Israel keeps moving more and more onto stolen land. To make it crystal clear what I'm talking about in that regard, I'd like your listeners to just Google very quickly Palestinian loss of land map. There are dozens of them out there on the internet.
I second that.
Palestinian loss of land map. It'll be crystal clear who is the aggressor in this conflict, this asymmetric conflict, and who are the victims. Secondly,
can I just add to that where I am now, I'm looking out of my window here towards the Mediterranean coastline, and I can see the illuminated oil and gas rigs in Palestinian waters where Israeli force is used to keep Palestinians away from the extraction of their own natural resources. And in Israel proper, in the once 1948 Palestine that we're talking about tonight, there is so much natural resource extraction. And I hear in the last few days many times from Gazans, from Palestinians saying, you know, they're stealing not only our land but our natural wealth as well. And from Gaza, it's so viably obvious. From all around the Gaza Strip, you can see Israeli industrial cities with their chimneys, churning away industrial might with Palestinian resources from the West Bank even. And from the coastline in Gaza, we can see these resources being extracted while Palestinian fishermen are shot at within a few miles of their own coastline.
Exactly, and there is plenty of documented on YouTube videos of Israelis shooting Palestinian farmers and fishermen. I urge your listeners to go to YouTube and just Google Israel shoots fishermen.
Okay, we have 2 minutes, David. We got.
Okay, I'll get out of here. But those are the rockets. I also wanted to comment on have killed less than 30 Israelis in 22 years. But that's all we hear in Western media is, oh my God, the rockets are falling on Israel. Meanwhile, Israeli rockets fired from F-16s, helicopters, and drones have killed hundreds of Palestinians in that same time. Not to mention the artillery rounds and the shelling from tanks and artillery pieces and naval ships off the coast of Gaza have killed thousands of people in that same 22-year period. It's a total asymmetric war, but it's not being presented as such by American media. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, you didn't have a question, but that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'll bail. I got my 2 cents.
Okay,
I'll let somebody else.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Well, I kept waiting for David to ask you a question, Harry, but that's okay, right? Anyway, we have 1 minute. Why don't we wrap up and you give us your summation in like 30 seconds if you can do it. Can you do that, Harry?
I'll do it. I can do it. Well, the war is over in the respect of Operation Pillar of Cloud has ended, and there is a ceasefire, in inverted commas, in place that is stopping the extraordinary bloodshed occurring that we saw during the war, where dozens of children were being killed. But the fight for Palestinian rights continues. Israel occupies Palestinian territory. It oppresses and besieges the population of Palestine living in third world conditions, being oppressed by a first world country backed by Western, North American and European states. It's our responsibility as citizens of those Western states to do something to make this stop.
Okay, thank you, Harry. There's the music. I'm going to talk to you offline because we're going to have you on again. We're going to talk about some stuff. So stay on. Thank you very much, everyone. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm Kathleen. My guest was Harry Fear. We were talking about the Palestinian Maafa. Am I pronouncing that correctly? It's M-A-A-F-A. I just got that word. It's an Arabic word, and it means the transatlantic catastrophe. We discussed that on my show, the Kathleen Wells Show. Come back next week. Thank you very much. We'll be right back next week. Thanks. Bye.